On Cochran Sports Showdown continues. We're talking about Pens Preds game 1 tomorrow, game 2 Wednesday at PPG Paints Arena. Interesting today, all the media was there, was media day. Jason Mackey, Ken Campbell, the Hockey News, had a article in which he quoted Jim Rutherford as basically calling the league a gong show. He didn't use that term, he used something else, but in reference to the mugging that has basically gone on, especially with Sidney Crosby. And he threatened that if the league doesn't do something about it, maybe teams will have to do it themselves. What's your take on this?
Well, number one, I have sensed that from Rutherford from a while, but credit to Ken Campbell for pulling Rutherford off to the side and getting that piece. But basically in there, what Jim said, he's tired of people treating Crosby like a crash test dummy, and he's right. We saw that in the Ottawa series, Mark Stone elbowing him in the head. I think it was Mathot poking him in the eye, people squirting water. It's just stupid. And it's stupid that it gets to that point. And I'm not saying it's because it's Crosby, it's because it's any star player. The NFL goes to great lengths to protect its stars, and the NHL can't do anything even close. It's embarrassing. Why you wouldn't want to keep your stars healthy and productive, whether it's Crosby or Connor McDavid or whomever, I don't know. But another thing in there, Pomp, he talked about worrying about sort of backsliding back to the 70s, and I think that's a very real concern with everything that's going on away from the play right now in the NHL.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate because it gives a whole lot of credence to the why don't they dress Sestito crowd. I think the answer more so than is find the goon, it's to find more big power forwards, to find guys that are gritty and gutty in front of the net that can actually skate and play and score. I don't know if those guys exist as much as we think they do because they've been starting to get phased out too. But, whether it's, a newer, like a Wayne Simmons type or a newer version of a Stevens or a Tocchet or someone like that, more Milan Lucic's, that's the challenge for a guy like Rutherford to find that has grit and tenacity and nastiness but can also play and keep up with the centers that they have.
Well, I mean, look, let's be honest, there's two things at play here. Look, Jim is sticking up for his guy, but if Jim was on the other side, he would be trying to find guys that could sort of push the envelope to slow Sid down. I mean, and look, and Jason talked about the NFL, but look, let's remember Cam Newton, the season opener in the NFL last year when they played the Broncos. He got hit in the head, 4 or 5 times after the game, and was complaining that he is getting hit in ways that guys aren't getting hit, and the Broncos are getting away with it. Nobody gets fouled more than LeBron James gets fouled. I mean, I think if you have a star player in general in any league, the other team is going to do everything it can to slow that guy down, whether it's legal or illegal. Is it fair? No, especially if it's hockey. It's not good for the game when you're trying to increase the footprint and your best player is getting abused.
Who's the biggest star in the NFL? Who's the biggest star in the NFL, Will?
Well, I would say Brady.
All right, what happens if you breathe on Tom Brady?
But there are different. The NFL has certainly changed, legislated its way to a cleaner product, but there are still exceptions. I mean, Cam is just as good an athlete as Brady. Should Sid get special treatment like Brady does, or should Sid be immune
from like the NFL does?
Roethlisberger does the same thing. He gets hit harder than most too.
I want to tape this, by the way. We're praising the NFL for something here, so I just want to let's just save this for later in November.
Yeah, but aren't they supposed to call the call? And my point is, if those things happen, you described Stone, we saw the eye gouging. Why don't they call that? You don't have to beat someone up.
It should be reviewable. I think that kind of stuff should be reviewable.
Boys mucking it up, Bob. They're mucking it up in this good scrum.
Mucking it up with an elbow to the skull.
And it's the same old culture that doesn't want to go away, and until it does, you're going to have this. And if they don't call it, it'll never go away. That's the point. All right, moving on. Let's talk about, Jason, what this does for the Penguins' legacy, specifically to Crosby and Malkin, if they should come away with a third Stanley Cup in their time here. Evgeny Malkin said today he doesn't even care about the NHL 100, even though he was omitted, and I think that probably angered him. He's more interested in cups, which I think is still the #1 criteria. What happens when you look at those two, Taves, Kane, those two combinations, Malkin and Crosby?
Yeah, I was kind of digging for that storyline today, Pomp, and Malkin wanted no part of it. But come on, like that wouldn't be sweet for him to get a third cup the same year he got omitted from that list. But I don't know how we want to compare this. If we want to compare it this year or, this generation of Penguins to Mario's Penguins, I do think that this generation is beyond Mario's Penguins just for the fact that they've played in 4 Cup finals and won 3, if we're assuming a win. To me, there's no comparison with Crosby and Taves. He's so far beyond him. I think it's laughable that people want to put Taves ahead of him. I think you have to look very seriously at this Penguins team being the best of its generation if they're able to win a cup.
I'm on board with what you had to say about the comps to the previous Penguins teams, Jason. I know those guys are just the golden era of hockey here in Pittsburgh, and it sounds sacrosanct to even suggest that they can't be as good as these Penguins, but they will definitely be more accomplished. That doesn't mean that these Penguins are as good as those teams, but more accomplished for sure. I would think that these Penguins are better than the Blackhawks if you look at their resume top to bottom over a similar swath of time, but you know what? That swath of time is a little bit longer now for the Penguins, and unless we see the Blackhawks get back to form on the back end of Taves and Kane's career, as we're seeing here in the 30s for Malkin and Crosby, it's open and shut in favor of Pittsburgh.
Right. I mean, to me, that is what's most impressive about this group is, I mean, how many years we went, 5 years in a row losing to a lower seeded team in the playoffs, and then you have the, Mike Johnston's, brief and unremarkable tenure, and they got it back together. I mean, I think, if Mario and Jaromir had got something back together, if Mario had stayed healthy, they had got something going again in the late 90s, that'd be a different story. But, I mean, the window for that first group in a non-salary cap era was still pretty short. I mean, we're talking like a 5-year period from 91 to 96 where they were sort of like a super elite team, and now we're going on a decade in an era where, look, it's year to year for some teams. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah, those Mario and Jágr teams lost to a lot of underseeded teams in the back end as well, and they didn't rebound and come back and rise back up again because they were older when they started as opposed to the current Malkin-Crosby era Penguins.
Yeah. And there's an issue here, too, I think, that we're seeing maybe Crosby and Malkin sort of absolve, but what I'm talking about is secondary scoring. In the 5-year window where they went and then didn't go and had all these early exits, they didn't have a lot of guys like Jake Gensel, Connor Sheary, Brian Rust stepping up and helping out the Stars. I think the Penguins of the 90s did, and you're starting to see what this group can do when they get a little bit of help.
Well, they did, but they just didn't do it at the important times and right moments like the younger guys did. I mean, they had a Ginla, they had Dupuis, they had Kunitz, had a better version of Chris Kunitz, James Neal when he was. So they had those guys. It just didn't manifest like it had with guys who are random mid-round or undrafted free agents that have really chipped in and scored big goals at right times.
By the way, these are first world hockey problems if we're trying to figure out which dynasty was better, as the guy that grew up watching the Caps and also now into his 40s still watching the Caps getting it handed to them by the Penguins. These are first world problems.
Well,
I don't know if there has to be a winner in this discussion.
Well, there's also a difference between talent, too. You can make this argument any way you want to, but if you had to ask people, talent, Lemieux, Jágr, Crosby, Malkin, that would be, I think, a different situation, maybe a different argument. Anyway, we're out of time here. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Pirates, who lost 2 or 3 to the Mets, still pitching issues. What do they do with some of these guys? They have 2 guys with 6+ ERAs in their starting rotation. Should they remain? That's next.